So, hi, introducing you to Mr. Bones. Hello, hello, ex-husband, whichever way you want to read him. So, if you look at his posture, that's often how we sit, isn't it? So, I'm going to try and do the similar thing as him. So, we collapse through the spine, we roll off the sitting bones, and we kind of roll back. The tummy protrudes and just collapses in the front, and the head pushes in front. Now, if you're honest with yourself, that might be quite easily where you're sitting when you're working on your computer, working with your mouse, reading a book, reading your iPhone, slouching on the couch, driving, maybe a little bit more upright with driving. So that's one of our postures that we develop because it's easy. The body is going to take the least path of resistance. So, there we will sit and we'll think it's quite comfortable, we're quite happy with it. However, you will notice after doing it for long periods of time that your body is not quite liking it and you start to get pain. So where would you get pain? Maybe you get it in your back, maybe you get it in your neck and your shoulders, carpal tunnel, story with typing and the mouse syndrome, neck, head, headaches, all those kind of things often are related to our posture. So how do we try and correct ourselves sitting? We might have to sit in our job for long hours. So what are you going to do? How can you think about trying to change this position of that poor posture? Because if you've been here for a couple of hours, okay, and now you're getting up for your lunch break or your tea break, guess what's going to happen? This shape is going to stay the same when you stand up. So it's going to be the similar thing. Okay, so what I want you to think about is every 30 minutes, change your position, get out of your chair and move, and then come back again. But coming back to changing your position while you're sitting. So if you think about it, you roll off your sitting bones, those bones at the bottom, and you slump back into your posture. So that's one of the things you do. So we want to now change that. So what would you do? Would you go all of the other way, where you hyperextend your lower back, you pull those shoulders hard back, and you're trying to sort out where your head's going to live on top of that, but it's creating an immense amount of tension. And you may be noticing, well, I can't really sustain this for very long, so then we collapse back again. So you're going to go in that direction, as in changing this postural position and get yourself in your S shape again, but you're going to not go to that extreme. So if your posture is a little bit on that way anyway, just be careful that you're not going so far into it when you come to do these things. So even when you hear your tummy can relax at the bottom, that's the same thing as when you hear the tummy is kind of just plopping out. So what you want to do is you want to find that middle position where it's easiest for your body. 1, helium balloon. Pop it on the top of your head, on the crown of your head. And if you pop that on the head, what will that do as in drawing up your spine towards the ceiling? So let's see. Do this with me. Try it out. It's your favorite color. So you pop it on the top of the head. It gently lengthens you up. So it's going to kind of help you stack everything on top of your sitting bones. So those bones that you're sitting on, those ischial tuberosities. So I'm going to now show you, if I do that with Mr. Bones, what that's going to look like, and I'd like you to see if you can do that in your own posture. So Mr. Bones, first he'll have to come forward onto his sitting bones. Now I always like to use the edge of the chair because that gives you a little bit more feedback. And he's going to have to change this flattening curve. So I'm going to get him up into getting his S shape in here again. And the same is going to happen with the neck, but now the chin is poking up to the ceiling. So can you actually change that and just drop your chin down into a little bit of a chin tuck? Sorry, manhandling him. He's a little stiff this morning. So yeah, so it's a little chin tucking in. And you're looking now straight ahead. If you're now going to see Well, my computer height is not quite there, which I do recommend that you set your station up, that you have your computer right in front of you on your eye level, that you're not looking up at it nor looking down at it. Pack it up on some books, do whatever you can to get that level up, particularly if you're using a laptop. That's where a lot of things go wrong, because we hunch and fall forward looking down at a laptop. Okay, so we've opened up his spine. We now got him sitting right on top of his sitting bones underneath there. Okay, and we're going to now think about the body pressure. So we've got his helium balloon on there. He's kind of lengthening up, but he's not quite sure if he can sustain this position. So you want 80% of your body weight sitting in the hips and 20% in your feet. So be mindful about that. Where is your weight in relationship with your feet? Are you getting something down into that? Also, we don't want to now collapse the tummy and work more in the back, because obviously these postural muscles are going to kick on to try and get you into this better position. So you want to draw in through that tummy. So if I just move his arm a little bit out of the way here, you're going to be pulling in that lower tummy. So around the speedo, bikini line, feel that you're kind of doing a shrink wrap around the spine. So it's that whole area, bottom of the ribs, top of the hips, shrink wrapping it. So that's like the core. We talk about the core muscles. So have you got your center core engaged and still be able to breathe forward, sides and back, so that you have the support for your lumbar spine. You have the support for these back muscles. If you're not using the front, these guys are going to work so hard, and then they're going to start spasming, and then you're going to move. You're going to move out of that position because it's way too uncomfortable. All right, so just a little thought. If you are used to being in that slump posture where we first started off with, getting into this position is going to take some effort. It's going to take some practice, because you've created a form of sitting many years, however long, many hours through the day. Some people sit 10, 12 hours. And if we're really honest and actually think about how much we sit, sitting to eat, driving, sitting to watch the telly, sitting to watch on the, or do stuff on the computer. And if you add up all those hours, there's a very small amount that we actually maybe walk around. And of course, when you sleep, then of course you're lying flat. Just so you know, the only time you're going to have your muscles switch off completely is when you're asleep. So posture means a little bit of effort. But if you incorporate the helium balloon, it'll make that effort a little less intense. Thinking of your shrink wrap of your tummy, think of your head positioned on top of your spine, and being appreciative of your breathing. Okay, so that's on the spine, lower back, and a little bit of the neck. Now I'm going to switch it over, and we're going to have a look at what goes on with the shoulder blade, because you've got your hands in front of you and you're working on your computer, and this is where a lot of things go wrong. His shoulder blades are fixed on his spine, so I can't really demonstrate with him where he's going to be or where we need to be. But I'm going to show you in my own body, and then you can get an idea on that. That's really important. That's going to help to relieve the neck as well, and carpal tunnel and compression in the neck vertebra. Okay, so we're going to have a closer look at what's going on in the shoulder blade. And the shoulder blade, it makes up part of your whole shoulder girdle. So the shoulder blade is that piece at the back, that moving bone that sticks out, it lifts up, it rolls back, comes down. It's got a lot of mobility. And then of course it's attached with your collarbone and your arm bone. What we want to do is actually discover in ourselves what's going on when we're in a poor posture. So what happens when we fall with rounded shoulders and collapsed shoulders, and that's a typical posture sitting. Yeah, it can be driving, sitting at a desk, sitting and doing sewing. So anything like that is going to cause this whole fallen, protracted shoulder girdle, which means things kind of roll forwards and your thumbs kind of turn in. So it's an internal rotation. So that would be an external rotation, where this is an internal, and you will find this forms. And then what happens, if you actually looked at yourself in the mirror at this point, you may notice what we call the soap dishes. So I've got really nicely pronounced soap dishes. I can show you those. So that's me now sitting in this posture where things are falling forward. Yeah, quite easy for us to recognize that in ourselves. So if we're going to change the soap dishes and get rid of them, because now the shoulder blade is rolled forward and it's winged up at the back, it's sticking out at the back, we need to do a bit of lateral rotation or outward rotation. So it's that kind of position. So I want you to practice this. So we're going to come forward, internal, and we're going to do external, rolling back. Now you will notice when you do this, so just sit in a little bit of your slump posture or a comfortable posture as far as your lower back is concerned. But just sit and then do your roll forward, do your internal, and notice where your head wants to just fall to. So that's our typical awful posture when we sit at a chair. And then if you do external rotation, notice that your head kind of wants to come back and on top of your spine. So play with that. So we're going to go internally, everything is falling forward, externally, and you get this kind of initiation of your shoulder muscles to help get your head back on top of your spine. So that's important. So think of that. Think of that falling forward is because you're turning internally. It's an internal rotation. Your head then falls forward. And when you rotate outward, the muscles are engaged in your shoulders and you can actually start to be, wow, the head sits on top of the spine with minimal effort actually. If you do that, you'll realize, well, it's actually a placement issue. It's not really, yes, strength is coming into it because, of course, this makes you weak and long. The muscles don't have that ability, but the more you can practice the external, the more the muscles at the back of the shoulder blades, the back of the neck and down the spine actually get engaged and they start to work better. And they're designed to work like that. So let's just help our bodies instead of fall forward and then the poor head, which we know is heavy. So how heavy is your head? Average person, it's 10 pounds in weight. That's what's sitting on top of your spine. And they've worked it out that each inch, just 1 inch of your ear not being in line with your shoulder, in line with your spine, is going to be an extra 10 pounds of weight on top of that. So you go 2 inches or 3 inches, that's an extra 30 pounds on top of your original weight, which makes it 40. So we can really, and I mean, I think I'm being, in honesty, we're probably being a little conservative on the 20-30 pound level. It's probably going more the 40-50 plus your weight of your head. So that's a hell of a lot of weight if you think about it. If I kind of demonstrate my worst possible posture, how far can I get that head forward? I wouldn't recommend you do this, but maybe you're there already and you need to learn this. Wow, that's a lot of weight that these poor muscles on the back of my neck, down the spine, are having to hold. And, your body is flexible, it can go there right now, but it's not going to be able to sustain that without problems, without pain, without compression, without pins and needles, neck issues, jaw issues as well. So please think about what you are doing with your posture when we talk about the weight of the head. So if I go and put my helium balloon on my head, we're going to get that on. I'm going to laterally rotate my shoulders and then I'm going to think about being up nice and tall. So if we come back to the lateral rotation, so if you internally rotate it, what happens is your elbows will move away from your body. The muscles at the top get really tight, hence why we get a lot of pain and tension up here, because we actually put our shoulder girdle, our joint, into a position where we're activating more on the top, and then the elbows move away as we turn rotating inwards. So these muscles here get really tight. It's kind of like elastic bands pulling you forward. Getting your soap dishes, I demonstrate that really well. So we want to now laterally rotate, and you will notice as you do that your elbows come back down to the sides of your body. So that's important to remember. If you're somebody that walks around with your elbows out there, you have internally rotated your shoulders in. So you are putting yourself in a position of an unneutral shoulder placement and then bringing on all the compensatory pains and triggers and all the rest that we get. So laterally rotate and bring your elbows to your sides. Now, don't think of this as military style. So, if I said to you, and you might have heard it many times in your life, stand up straight, sit up straight, all of those things that you might have got when you were younger. So you would have been, chest pushing out, pull those shoulders back and down. That's not what you want to think of now. And then you kind of try and figure out where your head is going to live on that. But there's a huge amount of tension going on in the back line of the body, and too much, because now you've gone past a neutral position. If I can demonstrate, so this would be neutral, as best as I can achieve it, to pushing back and forcing it. And you will notice there'll be a lot of tension going on between your shoulder blades, more so than what is required. Okay, and so let's just soften out of that and let's relax. So go with me, play with this, so you know the difference and know the difference of what it feels in your body. As an idea, is just something to give you more sensory feedback. So round shoulders. Notice how your hands have come in. So pretend you've got a desk, or if you're at your desk, brilliant, do it. And then you laterally rotate, bringing your elbows down to your sides. And then go, military style. And you see, that'll also create a lot more curve in your lower back as well, so that hyperextension. And then I'm going to say to you, okay, can you stay there and breathe? And you notice how my voice is starting to strain, because it's hard work. And I'm not actually feeling like I can get my ribs moving, because it's so tight that nothing wants to move. So we soften out of that. Okay, so gently rotated laterally. Elbows are at your sides. Now, the other little bit that gets a little harder to think of, and not think of, you can all think of it brilliantly, you're really clever, it's to feel it. That's what I'm meaning. So it's translating what your brain is thinking to what your muscle needs to do. And this is where is the shoulder blade sitting on the back of the rib cage? Is it flaring or sticking up? Or is it hugging around the back of the rib cage? Now we need it to be hugging. We don't want it fixed and jamming like the military pose. We also don't want it pulling forward, which is this internal rotation. Can we get it just setting itself nice and gently on the back of the rib cage as we have our hands in front of us? It's different when you've got your arm up here. When you're working, different movements of the arms is going to change the way that shoulder blade moves. But the idea is it doesn't need to be winging. Now winging comes from, if I can show you with mine, I'm going to try and demonstrate it. So you need to look here, this here at the back of my shirt there. So between my shoulder blade. So if I kind of wing it, you see what happens? You see that little bit is stuck out. It's kind of like it goes at an angle. Okay, and if I bring it flat, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to wing it again. Yeah, hope you can see that. And then bringing it flat. Now, if I wing it, my shoulder, look here now, rolls forward. Yeah? Okay, I'll try not to let my elbow get involved and try and just isolate it to here, because your elbow works with this. And then if I flatten, there. Okay, so you can think of it as armpit. So if your armpit lifts up, it's going to wing. Your shoulder will roll forward. If your armpit goes down and a little bit forward, it'll flatten. Okay, so it's slight movements here. It's really subtle. So don't try and do big movements, because you're going to create too much tension and it's going to be quite uncomfortable. You might even cramp in those little muscles around here. So just be careful of not trying to force it too hard. We always do that. We want to overcorrect because we want to get it right. Okay, so if I wing my shoulder blade there, and then now so that my armpit is now going down, going backwards, yeah, and my shoulder is rolling forward. Now if I bring my armpit, kind of directing it down towards my hip, yeah, does that work for you? That you can get that flattening. So it's really playing with that and realizing what the shoulder can do on its own, and we have to learn to be able to mobilize that shoulder blade on its own. So here I am, I'm flattening, I'm rolling forward, I'm winging. You might not see it as effectively from the back, but just to show you different angles. Another thing that happens when you are internally rotated, look at my collarbones here. So they've popped up. Hello, collarbones. Oh, they go a little flatter and wider. Oh, they pop up and they come forward. So that's now the other bone that's on the shoulder girdle. So you've got the shoulder blade, the arm, the collarbone. And the only attachment that you have of all of this bone to bone, like a wrist to arm joint, is right here. So that's why you can move your arm in such amazing movements, because it's got a shallow socket, it's got that flexibility, and we have these extra little sections that actually help lever it up and down and around. Okay, so if you think about your collarbones now, so if you rotate it forward, you're sitting at the desk, you've dropped your chin forward, and you're thinking, yeah, well, okay, how do I change this now? So you laterally rotate, so bring your elbows underneath you into your sides, widen your collarbones, lengthen up through your helium balloon, drop your armpits down and slightly forward. It's not your military style again. So always check yourself that you can breathe. And when we're first doing this, don't be surprised when you get this feeling that you're working here, because that's where you need to be working. That's where we need to strengthen those muscles, but it's not so tight that you can't breathe. So always use your breathing as a little bit of awareness and remembrance of that. Okay, so well done. Let's see if you can practice that. Keep going with that. Think about where you are posturally when you're sitting at your desk. So just a recap, thinking about where you were posturally. So if we slump and we sit like we would at a desk, at a chair, and we need to correct that position. So helium balloon on top of your head, start with that. Lift up onto your sitting bones. I always recommend sitting near the front edge of the seat, only because it gives you a lot of feedback for sitting bones. And this is not the greatest place, as you know, although it might feel really great and easy. So that's why we get up every 30 minutes and we move around and you fidget. As soon as you're starting to feel uncomfortable in your seat, that's your body telling you you need to move. Your nervous system is saying, things aren't quite right. Please change your position, get the blood flow back in, because the most compressive forces on your spine are when you're sitting. Yeah, so it's really difficult. So we want to kind of find ways that we can get moving and get our body out of that tight tension position. Okay, so here you are. So you're up on your sitting bones. Now remember what I said about the tummy would just collapse. So I want you to find your abdominal shrink wrap. It's going to wrap all the way around, so you've got some tone going on here. The other reason why I want you on the edge of your seat is so you don't sit on your hamstrings. The hamstrings don't like being sat on all day long, and then they get tight or they just get grumpy, and then when you try and do flexibility, then it doesn't work for you. So you want to try and get yourself ergonomically as best as you can in a good seated posture with your spine, with your head, and also your leg weight. So we said 80% of the body weight down in those sitting bones, 80 to 90, and then 20% weight in those feet with your shrink wrap tummy brace on, but you can still breathe. Remember, that's always your check. Are you able to breathe? Now, let's go for internal and externally rotated shoulders. So internal rotated will be here. So you notice I can still set myself up relatively well here, but still be falling on the upper body. Yes, so be mindful. We got all these areas we want to bring into line, not just the lower back, not just where the legs are and the hips are. We do always remember that we got to sort out this 10-pound head weight that can get 40, 50, 60 pounds the further your head is in front of you. Okay, so we got the helium balloon on top. We've laterally rotated the shoulders a little bit. Bring your elbows to your side. So that's why when you're working at a surface, you have this level position. You're not going to be up with your hands and you're going to be low with your hands. You want to get that comfortable place where you're releasing the tension out of your shoulders. Your screen is in front of you, okay? And I know what you're already thinking, but what if I have to look down and I'm doing art or I'm doing sewing and I need to be actually looking down at a lower surface, because you can't have your art up here in some instances, or you can't have your sewing machine up here, or you can't, you know, whatever you're doing. I'm going to give you that, don't worry. So we laterally rotated, so we've turned out the shoulders, we've opened the collarbones. We bring down that armpit so that we get that winging shoulder blade tucking in. So there's my wing, bring it in. Okay, now the head now is happily going to come and sit up on top of the spine. And say you're now working with something that is a little lower, so you have to look down. That's quite possible. There's no problem. You can do that. Instead of you moving from the bottom of your neck, you move from your ears. So think of Mr. Frankenstein's ears, bolts coming out here, and that's the only place you can swivel from. So you're nicely settled, nicely placed, you can breathe, you've got your abdominal brace on, don't forget about that, it switches off easily. And then you just swivel from the ear. So you notice I've been able to bring my eye gaze all the way down to my hands with no problem at all. So it's a little bit of a nod, a little bit of a chin tuck movement, and that in itself is worthwhile practicing, because we often don't do that. We go there, yeah? So we lengthen the back of the neck. And now gravity is our friend for a change. Yes, it's effort. I'm with you. It's like I said, it's the most compressive position for the spine. But all these things we need to practice so that it becomes normal. And with time, you must remember you've been setting yourself in a bad position for a long time. Might have been even from school days, you know, when we suddenly have to sit at a desk as kids, we lose that ability to be really nice and upright. You just watch a 2-year-old toddler running around and how they move and how they sit. They're amazing because they haven't been conditioned to falling forward. They haven't really been introduced too much in, you know, I'm just talking generally, to the whole seated thing all day long, you know, because they're up and about, they're running around, there's so much energy, they're getting their body moving through different positions, and that's fantastic. And we lose that, unfortunately, when we go into our life and things, you know, with education, with studying and training. So that's why it's always a good thing to get a standing desk. But that's another subject all on its own. But ideally, we would want to try and change our body position through the day. The body's meant to move. It's designed to move. And sitting static or stagnant, or even just standing stagnant, can cause complications for us. Okay, so do you have it? So remembering, you're up on your sitting bones. Abdominal shrink wrap. You can breathe. Stacking yourself. Helium balloon on your head. Where your shoulders, laterally rotate them, turn them outward. Make sure your knees aren't together as well, just remember that as an extra little bit. And then do some nodding, armpit going down, and then feel that you have that support structure in your shoulders to manage the whole upper body, to manage your wrists, to manage elbow pain, wrist carpal tunnel pain, and all of that. So I hope that you found that helpful, and it just made a little bit of sense just seeing old Mr. Bones here as my my mystery guest. Just appreciate we can make those changes. No matter how old you are, how young you are, there's absolutely no limit on that. You can make the changes, but it's all about that awareness. So thanks, well done guys. Please keep it up, particularly if you do sit for a long period of time through the day. Cheers, bye.